සියලුම SLT මොබිටෙල් සේවාවන් MySLT ඇප් එක හරහා කරගන්න. සියලුම SLT මොබිටෙල් සේවාවන් MySLT ඇප් එක හරහා කරගන්න.
දසනකාන්ති චූර්ණය සහිත ලීවර් ආයුෂ් දන්තාලේපය දත්වල ඇති ප්‍රශ්න 10ක් වළකයි.
Court ruling. Supreme Court says the draft 22nd Amendment should be passed by a special majority and a referendum on the clauses in question should be amended. Subject Minister says government will proceed to enact 22nd Amendment avoiding a referendum. Towards viability, Cabinet approves the establishment of a public enterprise restructuring unit to guide and assist the restructuring of state enterprises. Inclement weather. District secretaries directed to prepare for a possible disaster situation as weather patterns intensify. Rebuilding Sri Lanka. President Ranil Wickremesinghe says new laws will be introduced to rebuild the country, pledges to rescue the nation without fear. All this and much more coming up tonight, this Tuesday, the 6th of September 2022.
විම් දියර මිලිලීටර් 100 ස්මාර්ට් පැක් එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome joining you tonight on First at 9. I'm Indivari Anuatha. The Department of Irrigation warns of a major flood situation to low-lying areas if rainfall persists to the catchment areas. Taking the situation into account, district secretaries have been directed to make necessary preparations to face a possible disaster situation in the country if the weather situation worsens. However, the Met Department expects rainfall to ease in the coming days, but fishery communities are warned to remain vigilant.
Rainfall across the island has intensified in several parts since last night, with the highest rainfall in the past 24 hours ending at 8 am recorded from the Noor Elia district at 207.4 millimeters. A minor flood situation was reported in low-lying areas of the Mahoya Valley belonging to the divisional secretaries of Alauwa, Divulapitiya, Meerigama, Pannala, Vennappua, Nigambo, Katana, Narammala and Dankotuwa. Meanwhile, according to the Department of Irrigation, high rainfall was experienced in most upstream catchment areas of the Mahoya River Basin. Thereby, taking the situation into account, the Irrigation Department issued a red notice warning of high possibility of major floods to the affected low-lying areas of the Mahoya Valley. Earth slips and landslides were reported in several areas of the districts of Kandy, Kegol and Matale, interrupting vehicular movement in several parts. Meanwhile, the adverse weather conditions have led to the loss of 2 lives. Given the severe weather pattern, the National Building Research Organisation also extended its early landslide warning until 3 p.m. tomorrow for several areas of 8 districts in Sri Lanka.
Due to prevailing weather conditions as well as weather prediction issued by the Department of Meteorology, the landslide early warning message has been extended up to 3:30 p.m. on tomorrow for the following areas. Warning level 3 evacuation red notice was issued to Udunwara Division Second Division Kandy District, Rambukkana, Kegol, Ruwanwella, Yatiyantota, Bulat Kahupitiya and Mavanala Division Second Division Kegol District, Mallawapitiya Division Second Division Kurunegala District, Ambagamuwa Division Second Division Nuwara District, Kuruvita and Kalwana Division Second Division Ratnapura District, and warning level 2 alert amber warning was issued to Padukka and Sitawaka Division Second Division Colombo District, Ingiriya, Palindanuwara and Bulasingala Division Second Division Kaltara District, Patha Hewahata, Pujapitiya, Harispattuwa, Ganga Watakorle and Patadumara Division Segregation Kandy District, Marakapola, Dehovita, Darnegala, Galigamu and Arnayaka Division Segregation Kegol District, Ukela Division Segregation Matre District, Ratnapura, Ahliagoda, Nivitigala and Alapada Division Segregation Ratnapura District. And warning level 1, which warning was issued to Agalawat and Dodangoda Division Segregation Kaltara District, Deltota, Udapalata, and Gangahila Korle Division Segregation Kandy District, Mawatakama, Ridigama, Kurnagala, Alawa and Polgahila Division Segregation Kurnagala District, Rattota, Matale and Amanganga Korle Division Segregation Matale District, Kahavatta, Krialla, Palmadulla and Ayagama Division Segregation Ratnapura District.
Meanwhile, according to the Department of Meteorology, fairly heavy showers of above 50 millimeters are expected to several parts of the island tomorrow. The Met Department requests the fishery communities to remain vigilant as there is a possibility of swell waves about 2 to 2.5 meters in the sea areas off the coast extending from Putlam to Hambantota via Colombo and Galle. However, the Department of Meteorology says rainfall can ease from tomorrow.
Heavy rainfall condition we have experienced yesterday has already reduced from today onwards. However, showers at times can be expected over Saparagamua and western provinces as well as in Kandy, Nuwara, Galle and Matra district. Fairly heavy falls about 50 millimeter can be expected at some places in the Saparagamua provinces and in Kandy and Nuwara district tomorrow also, but we can expect further reduction of rainy conditions.
In this backdrop, all district secretaries have been informed to make necessary preparations to face a possible disaster situation. In a statement, the President's Media Division said that the President has directed all line ministries to take necessary measures to avoid emergency situations and maintain public life. The line ministries have also been notified to provide necessary support for the speedy implementation of necessary relief programs in the event of a disaster situation. Meanwhile, the hotline 117 will be operational round the clock, while the National Disaster Relief Services Centre will operate 24 hours.
At a time where government is focused on restructuring the country's state-owned enterprises, the Cabinet approved the establishment of a public enterprise restructuring unit in order to guide and assist the restructuring of state-owned enterprises making massive losses. An establishment of a public-private partnership national agency was also approved to be set up at the Ministry of Finance for identification and implementation of public-private partnership projects within a specified time frame. During the Cabinet meeting held last evening, approval was granted to appoint a committee comprising of senior officials headed by the Secretary to the Prime Minister to ensure the smooth functioning of large-scale development projects. The committee is tasked with taking action to solve existing issues hindering large-scale development projects implemented by line ministries. Cabinet approval was granted to the proposal after evaluating a report prepared by the Department of Project Management and Supervision on physical progress by the end of the second quarter of 2022. According to the report, 260 large-scale development projects exceeding 1 billion rupees with a total investment of 5.8 trillion rupees have been implemented, out of which 125 projects are funded via foreign financing means. While these projects are slated to complete in 2030, the report has concluded that these development projects are negatively impacted due to import restrictions, shortage of raw material, inflation and other challenges faced by the economy. The Cabinet also gave the green light to the establishment of a public enterprise restructuring unit with the objective of identifying methods for minimizing the financial burden of state enterprises on the Treasury and to enhance performance of state enterprises. The proposal to set up a special unit to oversee the restructure of public enterprises was submitted by President in his capacity as Subject Minister. The Public Enterprise Restructuring Unit will be set up under the Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies to guide loss-making state-owned enterprises through the restructuring process. Further, a public-private partnership national agency will be set up under the Ministry of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies to take necessary measures for encouraging investments into Sri Lanka. The agency is tasked with identifying obstacles confronted by investors when investing in Sri Lanka and finding solutions to create an enabling environment. The agency is also mandated to identify and implement public-private partnership projects within a special time frame. Meanwhile, Cabinet decided to implement recommendations of the committee looking into the possibility of granting 5-year leave to state employees. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena presented the proposal in his capacity as the Minister of Public Administration, Home Affairs and Provincial Councils. In June, a 7-member committee was appointed with the task of making recommendations regarding the provision of granting leave for government officers. Earlier this year, the government decided to encourage employees in the public sector to take no-pay leave for a period of 5 years without affecting their seniority and pension for employment overseas or to work in the private sector. In Parliament today, opposition parliamentarians urged the government to table the staff-level agreement reached with the Washington-based International Monetary Fund. In response, Leader of the House, Dr. Susil Premajayantha, assured that the President will inform Parliament regarding the basis on which the staff-level agreement was reached.
වර්තමාන ජනාධිපතිතුමා විපක්ෂයේ මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙක් හැටියට කටයුතු කරන අවස්ථාවේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේදී IMF Article 4 staff report එක වහාම සභාගත කරන්නයි කියලා කිව්වා මූල්‍ය බලය පාර්ලිමේන්තුව සතුව නිසා. ගරු රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඒ ලබා දුන්නු පූර්වාදර්ශය අනුගමනය කරමින් මම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ඉල්ලීමක් කරනවා IMF එකත් එක්ක ඇති කරගත්ත staff level agreement එක පුළුවන් නම් හෙට දවසේම සභාගත කරන්න.
ඊයේ මහ බැංකුවේ අධිපතිතුමා රූපවාහිනියට කියලා තියෙනවා කිසිසේත්ම මේ මාණ්ඩලික වාර්තාව ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල අරමුදලත් සමග එකඟ වෙච්ච පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ඉදපත් කරන්න නම් හැකියාවක් නැති වෙයි කියලා. අපි රට බංකොලොත් වෙලා තියෙන අවස්ථාවේ ජාත්‍යන්තර මූල අරමුදලට ගිහිල්ලා යම් දේවල් වලට එකඟ වෙලා තියෙනවා නම් ඒවා පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ එකඟත්වය ලබා ගන්න ඕන. නිලධාරීන්ට ඕන දේවල් එකඟ වෙන්න පුළුවන් IMF එකත් එක්ක. හැබැයි ඡන්දෙන් පත් කරපු නියෝජිතයෝ තමයි මේ එකඟ වෙන්න ඕනේ මේ රටේ ජනතාවට මේක දරා ගන්න පුළුවන්ද බැරිද කියලා. එහෙම නැත්නම් සාකච්ඡා කරලා ජනතාවට දරා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙන විදිහේ ප්‍රතිසංස්කරණ කරන්න ඕනේ.
ස්ටාප් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකේ ෆ්‍රේම්වර්ක් එකක්වත් පාර්ලිමේන්තුව එක සාකච්ඡා කරනවා නම් හොඳයි කියන එක මගේ අදහස ගරු කතානායකතුමනි මේක ඊටාම වැදගත් ප්‍රශ්නයක් මේක මේ වෙලාවේ අතපසු කරොත් ගිය පාරත් මේ වගේම මහ බැංකුව අධිපතිවරු කරලා විශාල අර්බුදයකට අපි වැටලා තියෙන නිසා මේ ස්ටාෆ් ලෙවල් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකේ මොකද්ද වෙන්නේ මොනවාද ඒකේ හරය කියන එක පිළිබඳව දැනුවත් කිරීමට ජනාධිපතිතුමාව දැනුවත් කරන්නන්ට ඒ අනුව එතුමා ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කටයුතු කරાવી.
සෞභාග්‍ය දැක්ම මැතිවරණ ප්‍රකාශයේ තිබ්බේ රාජ්‍ය ආයතන සියල්ලම ආරක්ෂා කරනවා කියලා. වරබහමුනේ ඒකට. එතකොට මේ ස්ටාෆ් ලෙවල් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එකේ මේවා ප්‍රතිවේගත කරන්න ඕන නම් අඩු ගන්න පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට හරි දැනෙන්න දෙන්න ඕන. මොකද ලක්ෂ 10ක් විතර යැපෙනවා.
IMF ස්ටාෆ් ලෙවල් ඇග්‍රීමන්ට් එක අඩු ගණනේ මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලයේ එම ගැන දැනුවත් කරලා තියෙනවාද? ඒ කරුණු ගැන කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය දන්නවද?
Announcing the Supreme Court's determination on the draft constitutional amendment in Parliament this morning, Speaker Mahinda Yapa Abewardena stated that some provisions of the bills are inconsistent with the Constitution. The Supreme Court also concluded that the draft constitutional amendment should be passed by a special majority and a referendum of the clauses in question should be amended. However, Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms, Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said that the government will proceed to enact the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, avoiding a referendum. He said the enactment of the Constitution will be adhered to with the proposed variations in the determination by the Supreme Court.
In Parliament today, Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapa Abewardena announced the Supreme Court determination on the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution.
On the overall consideration of the provisions of the bill, the Supreme Court has made following determinations. Number one, Supreme Court states that the bill complies with the provisions of the Article 82(1) of the Constitution and requires to be passed by the special majority specified in the Article 82(5) of the Constitution. Number two, Clause 2 of the bill contains provisions inconsistent with Article 3 read together with Article 4b of the Constitution and such may be enacted only by the special majority required by the Article 82(5) and upon being approved by the people at referendum by virtue of Article 83. However, the necessity of a referendum shall cease if the proposed Articles 41A, 41A6 and 41B4 in Clause 2 are suitably amended to to remove the deeming provisions set out therein. Number 3, Clause 3 of the bill contains provisions inconsistent with Article 3 read together with Article 4B of the Constitution and as such may be enacted only by the special majority required by Article 82(5) and upon being approved by the people at a referendum by virtue of Article 83. However, the necessity of referendum shall cease. A. If proposed Article 44(2), the provision of Article 44(3), Articles 45(1), 46(1), 43(7)(a), 48(3), and 50 in Clause 3 are suitably amended by deleting the reference to the President acting on the advice of the Prime Minister and replacing instead with the President acting in consultation with the Prime Minister. B. If provisions of Articles 47(2)(a) are restored in proposed Article 47(2) in Clause number 3.
However, Minister of Justice, Prison Affairs and Constitutional Reforms Dr. Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said the government will proceed to enact the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, avoiding a referendum. He said the enactment of the constitutional amendment will adhere to the proposed variations in the determination by the Supreme Court.
President calls for new struggle to rebuild the country. We'll find out when we return after this break.
කාලගුණය කොහොමුණත් රයිනෝ නං වාලට සේෆ් තමයි මුළු ගෙදරම. Rhino cement roofing sheets. Then you know Rhino. I know.
Big 3.
Welcome back to the news. President Ranil Wickremesinghe called on the public to join in creating one of the most competitive economies in the world that is free of debt, addressing the 76th anniversary celebrations of the United National Party. The president said several new laws will be introduced to rebuild the country. He went on to assure that government will honour and repay all debts Sri Lanka has taken, although the journey ahead remains tough.
The 76th anniversary celebrations of the United National Party was held at the Sugatadasa Stadium in Colombo today under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
මං අද කතා කරන්නේ මේ පක්ෂයෙන් බිහි වුණ හතරවෙනි ජනාධිපතිවරයා හැටියට. එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ජනාධිපතිවරයෙක්ට වඩා වෙනස් තත්වයක් මට එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ ආණ්ඩුවක් නැහැ. මට එක්සත් ජාතික පක්ෂයේ පාර්ලිමේන්තු කණ්ඩායමක් නැහැ. අද අපි සියලු දෙනාම එකතු වෙලා මේ ආණ්ඩුව ගෙනියන්නේ. මං හිතන්නේ මේ රටේ ඉතිහාසයේ ඊට ඉස්සෙල්ලා මෙහෙම අර්බුදයක් තිබුණා. ආර්ථිකය කඩා වැටෙනවා. අන්න එතෙන්ට තමයි අද අපිට විසඳුම් හොයන්න තියලා තිබෙන්නේ. මේ සැරේ මහා කන්නට පෝරක් දෙනවා, ඉන්ධනක් දෙනවා, බීජයක් දෙනවා. කරුණා කළා විශාලම අන්සන්න අපිට ලබලා දෙන්න. අපිට හැමදාම හිඟා කන්න බෑ. කැමතිද හිඟා කන්න? කැමතිද ණය වෙන්න? අපේ දෙමව්පියන් අපිට පුහුණු කරලා තියෙන්නේ ණය ගත්තොත් ණය ආපහු ගෙවන්න. කොච්චර අමාරු වුණත් අපි බය නැතුව දැන් ගිහින් මේ ණය ඔක්කොම ගෙවලා දාමු. මින් පස්සේ ණය වෙන්නේ නැති ආර්ථිකයක් ඇති කරමු. ලෝකේ තරඟකාරීම ආර්ථිකයක් ඇති කරගමු. බය නැතුව අපි මේ ගමන ආරම්භ. පළවෙනි අරගලය ඉවර වුණා. රට එකතු කරන දෙවනි අරගලය අපි මෙතනින් ආරම්භ කරනවා කියලා මං කියන්න කැමතියි. එහෙනම් අපි එකතු වෙමු. බය නැතුව ඉදිරියට යමු. ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ ශ්‍රී ලංකාවක් ගොඩනගමු කියලා ප්‍රකාශ කරමින් මගේ වචන ස්වල්පය මං අවසන් කරනවා.
Taking you to business news, it is said that restructuring is the way forward, and we have been talking about restructuring of state-owned enterprises. Restructuring of state-owned enterprises has become a key focus in government in order to make these entities more efficient. One such entity the government is focused on is the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, which incurred a staggering loss of some 628 million rupees in the first 4 months of this year. According to the Ministry of Power and Energy, restructuring of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation itself remains a must-do due to several reasons, including the inefficiency of the workforce and political influences, as well as appointments and irregularities in the procurement and distribution process. Meanwhile, Parliamentarian of the Samagi Jana Balawege, Dr. Harsha De Silva, says it is unfair that the CPC losses are a result of massive corruption and that is passed down to the consumers as fuel cost.
It is no secret that some of the leading service providers in the state sector incur massive losses, putting more burden on the people of Sri Lanka. It has now come to a point that a feasible solution to these loss-making entities are essential to ensure their operations are made efficient. As a result, the government is focusing on restructuring such state-owned enterprises. As a preliminary step, the government called expressions of interest to invest in 49% of Sri Lankan catering and also 49% of Sri Lankan Airlines ground handling as a first step towards restructuring of the national carrier Sri Lankan Airlines. Ceylon Petroleum Corporation is yet another institution that the government aims to restructure, owing to its massive losses and inefficiency of workforce. According to the mid-year fiscal report of the Ministry of Finance, the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has incurred a loss of 628 million rupees in the first 4 months of 2022. Speaking at an event in Colombo titled Private-Public Partnership Models for Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, an analysis of opportunities and challenges organized by the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, Power and Energy Minister Kanchana Wijesekara and SJB MP Harsha De Silva addresses the concerns within the state-run Ceylon Petroleum Corporation.
I've highlighted several reasons why we are in business. Exchange rates. When we purchased 180 days ago petroleum products for 203 rupees a dollar, when we're paying them back now, we've already paid some money with the two state banks, but unfortunately we have to pay 368 rupees on the dollar that we are paying them back. So that is one of the biggest reasons for our losses that we made. And also there are other multiple reasons, because before the fuel pricing formula was introduced, I don't want to put this entire blame on the workforce, because I know that different administrations took this continuous decision on not putting out a fuel pricing based on the cost. So kerosene has always been sold in the market for less than what it had cost the CPC. That was a massive burden. And also one of the biggest things is highly paid workers. I don't mind people being paid the right salaries, even if they're paid higher salaries if they do the job they're assigned to do. One of the biggest burdens in CPC is inefficiency. Most of them, I won't say everyone, most of them don't perform their jobs that they should be performing. And one of the main areas that we need to do change is also the managerial director post. It should be someone who's experienced in this sector, not a political appointment. One of the things that I want to change as well, so that he is there for maybe a 6 to 8 year period, so that he can actually contribute to a better management, that he does the administration work. Tender procedure is how CPC has operated in procuring supplies. Tender procedures do require certain days of credit, 130 to 180 days of credit. But unfortunately, some of the guidelines that were given by ministry was not followed as well. So there are a lot of question marks, a lot of gray areas.
And then what happens is that becomes cost reflective pricing. Then that gets dumped on the consumer. Now that's really unfair. How do these things happen? Why, when the petroleum corporation had money to purchase dollars, why was not allowed to do so? And got the banks to make it into long-term loans to the CPC. And now I think some $3 billion or something is due to the two banks. But procurement is an issue. Now these two huge purchases, one on various types of fuel and the other one on coal, which is a $1.5 billion procurement. Sri Lanka's largest, apparently, the procurement. So somebody was asking me this in Parliament about investigations and so on. I said, why don't you bring back the 19th Amendment? And if you bring back the 19th Amendment, the Independent Procurement Commission was in the 19th Amendment, which was taken away with the 20th Amendment of the Constitution. So these are governance things that go beyond a particular ministry or a particular industry. And I think as a nation, we have to become more transparent and accountable to the people, because at the end of the day, we are saying cost reflective. And what does that cost include? If the cost includes corruption cost, wastage cost, other things that are unfair burden on the consumer, then we have a problem. And even if we support, how do we sell this to the public, right?
Now, measures to curtail imports have resulted in the contraction of trade deficit during the month of July. Earnings from exports increased in July, while import expenditure declined for the fifth consecutive month on a year-on-year basis. As per central bank data, the trade deficit recorded $123 million compared to $606 million in July 2021.
According to the external sector performance report released by the central bank for the month of July this year, earnings from exports increased by 5.4% into $1.164 billion. An increase in earnings was observed in industrial exports, while a decline was recorded in agricultural and mineral exports. Cumulative export earnings between January and July amount to $7.678 billion, which is a 12.9% increase compared to $6.803 billion recorded in the corresponding period in 2021. Expenditure on merchandise imports declined substantially by 24.8% to $1.287 billion in July, which is a reduction of over $400 million compared to $1.710 billion recorded in July 2021. Import expenditure on a cumulative basis from January to July 2022 amounted to $11.315 billion, which is a decline of 3.5% year-on-year. As a result of the reduction in import expenditure, the trade deficit recorded a notable contraction in July, easing stresses in the domestic foreign exchange market. The trade account deficit was $123 million in July compared to the deficit of $606 million recorded in July 2021. The cumulative deficit in the trade account during January to July this year narrowed to $3.637 billion from $4.9 billion recorded during the corresponding period in 2021. In the meantime, workers' remittances increased to $279 million in July in comparison to $274 million in June. Tourist arrivals rose in July to 47,293 from 32,856 arrivals in June this year, bringing earnings of $85 million.
And that's all for tonight. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.